Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm Helen Myers. Would you like me just to start on the housekeeping before I pass over to the really important people from this meeting, whose faces you can see there? So welcome. The Association for Language Learning, we have Roadshows, which are prepared by Stephen, and this is the local roadshow conversation, November 2020. Bit of housekeeping to start with. Please, could you rename yourself if necessary? I just realised that I haven't called myself who I should be. Please feel free to use the chat. We really like, the whole point of this is it's a conversation. We like interactivity. And our suggestion is that you add a Q in front of a question. And that way we can collect them. The session is recorded. It's being recorded now. Links will be sent to you to the recordings. And we know that people are absolutely flat out at the moment. So I'm sure there are some people who've signed up who haven't been able to come, but they will be able to see this recording later on. It's due to run for about an hour. No need to apologise. If you need to leave early, we totally understand. And we've put here, suggest turning off the webcam during presentation, but it doesn't matter actually. With the number that we've got, it's not going to use up too much bandwidth. So if you do want us to see your faces, it's nice to have a reaction. So you can keep it on if you like, but certainly at the end, it'll be nice to see your faces.
That's me.
So, yes, webinar etiquette. Basically, we're very nice people and we're kind. And we have to always put a disclaimer there to say we're very happy to host these events. It does not charge participants. Speakers kindly offer the service without payment. Volunteers run the events. Speakers and participants are responsible for what they say.
Terms and conditions.
That's the terms and conditions. That's right. I listen to these adverts. I know that's what they do. They go really, really quickly, don't they? So, so that's what it is. And it's my pleasure to introduce these three important people, after which I shall be stepping back and we'll be listening to them. So have you met the new ALL HMO team? And HMO stands for Honorary, did I say that correctly? Honorary Membership Officer. So really congratulations to Susie Buell, who's now our new HMO. You'd like to wave to us all, Susie, in a regal way, right? So we're all very, I mean, these are all people that we know so well. If you're a member of ALL, if you're not in it, if you've only just joined, you'll get to know them very well. So she's the new HMO, and we've got Judith, who is the deputy HMO. Would you like to wave? Lovely. And then Stephen Fawkes, who for a long time has had that position. He has moved into a role. He is already an ALL trustee, and he's going to have a special interest in this. So as a threesome, they're going to be really working, and we're so lucky to have the three of you looking after us, your volunteers working together to support us. So thank you. So now I shall pass over to, I think Stephen's going to be leading the proceedings.
Thank you very much. So yes, it's nice to be here. The roadshow is something that comes out at half-term holiday every term. There's a roadshow we do for primary members, that's for our primary hubs around the country. And the other one that we do for people who might be in a more mixed environment, that goes to our branches and network. So that's got primary content and secondary and sometimes other content in there as well. So the roadshow started about a year ago. This might be our anniversary, Helen, of the first roadshow, or maybe a bit longer than that. It was Helen's idea to try and do it as a webinar. So we tried to draw together the contents of the two roadshows and try to make them a bit interactive and a bit interesting so people can join in, talk about things and ask questions about what they want to find out more about. So I've just noticed that Sue has arrived. Sue is one of our proofreaders on Languages Today, and she'll be looking at the screen at the moment saying, Stephen, do you know, no, there's a question mark on the end of the question. When you say, have you met, you need to have a question mark after the word team. That'll be coming later on. I'll be getting an email about it in the next I won't be surprised at all. So yes, so we're now moving on. As you see on the left-hand side, I've put a photograph of the person who's going to be speaking. So you can now match them up and see how well they've aged. So my photo is a little bit old, so I haven't aged particularly well. The other two get younger by the day, so they're fine. So we're passing over now to Judith for our first piece of interactivity.
Yeah, so we'd just like to start with a little question for you, and you might like to put your suggestion in the chat. So really, after this really extraordinary and challenging half term that we hadn't expected, I think, what we'd like to ask you is to share which one piece of advice would you give a new colleague after this term of teaching? What did you find most useful? What would you like to share with each other? This is really, I mean, ALL is a community, as Helen was saying. We really try to support each other. We try to cheer each other on, to share advice, suggestions, ideas. So what piece of advice would you give? If you would just like to write something in the chat that you thought that you'd like to share. So we've already got some responses coming in. You can see them all in the chat as well. And I think, as always, the chat will be available as well after the recording. So we've got here: be kind and positive, do less, make time for your hobbies and interests outside school to counterbalance the madness and intensity. Remember retrieval practice, keep in touch with other languages teachers, reach out to each other. Low prep is the way forward. Keep your sense of humor when the IT goes wrong. And congratulate yourself on everything you've done. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Susie, you've put something there as well. Definitely. What did you say?
I replied definitely to our delegate Egel.
Yes.
Yeah, I was agreeing about keeping the sense of humour, because the technology in my school rarely works. So there's always a plan B or a plan C, and sometimes a plan D.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. That's better. So first of all, we just wanted to update you on a couple of things that are new on the website. The ALL website is updated very regularly, so do go back and have a look at it if that's not in your diary at the moment. Make a note to go back and have a look from time to time. There are two new areas. One of them is brand new and hasn't really been talked about yet, and the other one has been around for a couple of weeks, but is going to be evolving over the next few weeks. As you know, the issue that's going around at the moment in secondary is the one about the changes to GCSE exam for 2021, and in particular the area of speaking. So we've created a page on the website, which Helen's going to show to us in a moment, called Speaking Endorsement. And this is what this is trying to do is to bring together a bit, some notification of what's gone on already and why it's gone on, and then what's going to happen next. And then go on from that to try and come back to the really important things that we think as language teachers about speaking, because some of the, I'll tell you in a moment why we thought that was important to do. So we've got a little bit of an introduction here. Endorsement is a new buzzword. That's why language teachers are using it, because it came in the Ofqual suggestion. The suggestion, if you remember, they were asked to make by the government was how to save teachers and students time this year after the peculiar year they had before the summer and the one that they're having again now, where they're going to have been losing a lot of classroom time and learning time. How could they do something to the exams that would save a bit of time? And Ofqual focused their attention on speaking, the speaking exam. So they've now removed that from, they're going to remove that from the test and make it a statement, an endorsement from the teacher. That caused a little bit of confusion, so all of our online events have been trying to clarify those things there. So in the September, we had, in fact, I'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that now. It's on the screen there. You can see in the white paragraph, the final white paragraph there, Ofqual published their consultation decisions from the first consultation, which was the one where they said they were thinking about doing something to speaking. And then they've just had a second consultation about the criteria for speaking, which we had a meeting about as well, that Helen and her husband David very helpfully managed to give us lots of information at. So there are things further down the page which I'm going to come to, but that's really where those notes are from Ofqual and those things. So here we've summarized in red the consequences, which are for the summer examination 21 only. So it's not a long-term thing that they're proposing. And then down below that, we've got the details of the consultation that we've just had. And the final thing I notice on there, I ask you to notice the end of that white section where it says, please see the meeting notes. These are the notes from that Zoom meeting, which we pulled together and included a document from Helen. I just wanted to show you this now so you can see what there is there. So the notes are telling you what we talked about. They're pointing you at the briefing, which I'll mention to you again in just a moment. And then on the next page, what Helen had done was to look through the criteria and put the things together into strands. So she's got the different grades. At the top, you can see pass, merit, and distinction, which are the 3 headings that teachers can use. And then under the strands on the left-hand side, she's grouped together where the different things go. So you can see there's a strand about relevance, one about length of response, one about opinions, and so on and so on. So for teachers who like that sort of presentation, that's a very helpful thing because it shows them what the difference is between a pass on the one about content and what the definition is for one with a distinction and so on. So that's there on that page on the website, but it's just under that little link. So you do need to click on the link to find the notes. And then further down the page, if we just go further down, thanks, Helen. So this is things about health, particularly about the issues around singing, which were being raised in primary by teachers in primary in particular. So these are some considerations that teachers of languages might want to take into account. Nothing specific is said about teaching languages and speaking at the moment, but these are things that might cause us to think about things. And then further down the page, we come to, keep on going, please, Helen. We come to coming soon. And this is where we're going to be putting messages from our members, from other ALL members about speaking, why they think speaking is a really important activity to have in your classroom, whether or not it's going to be examined, how speaking contributes to all of the other language skills, how it contributes to motivation and memorization, all those sorts of things. So these are going to be professional think pieces from people who are determined not to allow the fact that we have a change for 1 year at GCSE to change the way they do things in the classroom because of their belief in the importance of speaking. Thanks, Helen. I'll go back to my PowerPoint screen, which is there. Okay, so those things, the other page, the other page is the Clil page, which I just wanted to point you at. So Clil is, for those people who are not familiar with the acronym, Clil is Content and Language Integrated Learning. And this is where you're trying to teach another area of the curriculum through your target language. So you might be teaching a science subject in German, for example. Helen's just going to show us what that page looks like. A lovely photograph there from our friend Laura down in the southwest. So this is a newish page. It's been there a couple of weeks, but it hasn't really been advertised as yet. And it's partly there in celebration of the fact that, if you go down the page a little bit, Helen, we have a new project a bit further down. There's our lovely Kathy Wicksteed, previous ALL president, who was an advocate of Clil back when other people were just discovering it. So this project you can see on the page now in front of you, ELAPSE, is an Erasmus Plus project which ALL has been a partner in for the last couple of years. And on Saturday, they are going to be launching their free resources, which consist, the central part of them is 20 lesson plans, fully resourced lesson plans to teach Clil type lessons to get an idea of whether you like them or not. It are targeted at upper primary, transition and lower secondary pupils. So those will all be free, along with lots of other things that you'll find on the website when it's launched. These are some of the articles about labs that you're welcome to have a look at by clicking on those links. And then we've got, so those glimpses there, they're just telling you what is coming up in the project. If you click on one of those, you'll come to a PDF. Then we've got, there's Jane, our current, rather last year's president, who's talking about some of the lesson resources that she particularly liked. There's Javier, who's from Valladolid, talking about what his, in Spanish, as you can see, as well as English, about some of the things he likes. And finally, there's Krista, who's our development manager at AWL, talking about what she found attractive about the lesson resources she looked at. So that page is there. And then further down the page, there's all sorts of other things about Clil that we're trying to pull together, because there's a lot going on around the world nowadays about Clil. So we've got a new steering group, a special interest group, who are going to be trying to draw that information together in case you are interested to find out more. So you can see there are some resources that you can buy from the shop that have been there for a little while now. And then there's events coming up around Clil, including the Clil Mondays that are going to be on, provided by the University of Aston, starting very soon now. And then the annual conference, rather the biannual conference they hold in Sheffield, which is coming up again in 2021. The one at the top there is another Erasmus funded project we have for teachers who've already signed up. So it's too late for you to sign up now, but it's a lovely opportunity for teachers in primary and secondary to go to their target language country and find out about more about the Clil approaches while they're there. So develop their language, their culture and their Clil awareness. So that page is there for you to look at your leisure, and there will be more things coming to it as they turn up. As you see, there are some headings there that have got nothing in them at the moment because we're waiting for content to arrive. Thank you to Helen. Stop Helen's sharing again and go back to my sharing. It's not that screen, it's that screen there. Okay. So briefings, if you don't know about briefings, these are where when a new document comes out, a statutory document or advisory document from one of the people who are involved in languages in Westminster in particular, then what we do to save you time is somebody reads the whole lot and then produces what we call a briefing, which is going to be 4 pages instead of 204. So basically it's trying to pick out the executive summary points and any things that particularly relate to language teachers, things we think you might be interested in. So as well as the information, that one there is about the new GCSE and the changes to GCSE there. Though there is at the end some action points that you might like to pursue if you're in a school or a department with several of you doing languages. You might like to talk about with your colleagues. You might like to talk about with your senior leadership team, especially if there's funding suggestions, those sorts of things. So if you haven't seen the briefings, that's the most recent one. You'll find it by putting briefing 26 into the search box if you can't follow the whole of the link. And the other thing that's newish is a thing that I'm calling shortcuts. Nobody else is calling them shortcuts. So don't put the word shortcut anywhere because it won't go anywhere. Nobody knows they are called shortcuts. These are documents where we're trying to bring together links to either pages on the website, articles on the website, articles on one of our wikis or on the blog, the All Connect blog, training resources that might be there. Things that you might not have seen when they came out, but are still there and are still relevant. So I'm going to show you the latest one, which isn't yet on the website. We started off with AWL as you do your training for trainees who are obviously really important to us. And then we've done one for NQTs, as you can see. And the latest one is this one here, which, as I say, is not yet on the website. And this one is for secondary teachers. The next one will be for primary teachers. So you can see, if you can see my page there, can you see it? Nod at me if you can. You can't see it, you can see it now, hurrah. So this is what I mean by being shortcuts. So there are sections on the left-hand, the themes on the left-hand side, and then the links we think are interesting in the middle. There'll be some we've missed, so if you spot someone there you think we ought to add, please let us know. So you can see there's a first bit about making the case for languages. That affects all of us. Keeping up to date, so this is all about how you get information about what's going on in the language world. The context of 2020, obviously, if you're having to do remote teaching you've never done it before, where can you go for help? If you're thinking about your classroom, and there's the endorsement one I've just mentioned. So opportunities for networking in CPD, things that are specific to secondary teachers in the secondary zone. And as your career starts to develop, you might be interested in thinking about using literature in your classroom, think about using songs, spontaneous speaking, all of these things that might be a little step on from when you started your teaching a couple of years ago, for example. So particular issues around those big themes, extended writing, linking with primary schools to make sure that we have a successful transition as we can. All those things are in there as well for secondary teachers, obviously, too. And then visits and exchanges, resilience, so looking after yourself. And then this is the other thing that we offer as ALL to our members. We offer you professional development in directions that you might be interested in or you might not. So if you're interested in being a reader or a writer or a creator or organizing events of your own, we can help you to do that. We've got people who've been doing that and can give you advice and get you going on that. It's just a matter of asking. And then here we are going to taking responsibility, thinking about being a head of department, inspection, being a mentor, curriculum planning, and so on and so on. So that's what I call shortcuts. You can call it whatever you like, but I call it shortcuts because that helps me to remember what it's supposed to be. And those are on the website. As I say, there's only 2 there at the moment. That third one will be appearing in the next couple of days, all being well. Okay, time to hand over shortly. But just to say that we're really, I'll say that another time, we are really keen to have any content from members that you want to share with us. If you'd like to write something, however long or short, then do think about sending it in. We can help you with editing, and we can help you with presentation and putting it into a format that'll look good on the website, for example. But we really want members to feel that this is their website, that you can contribute and that you can have your say on there as well. So there's the French one, just because that was one we did something to this week. So a new blog on there that came out of one of these webinars, by the way. No, it didn't. It came out of the Acapulco event that Susie's about to talk about. There's a blog there from Marie-Odile Guillou about French punctuation. And another one about getting involved with Francophone countries, and Francophonia, which is a company helping us out at the moment as well. So those things just arose, they just turned up, and then we were able to share them. And that's what we want to do. We want to make things interactive and feel that the members are really at the heart of what we're doing. So now I'm going to pass over to Susie. I'm going to stop sharing so Susie can, no, she doesn't need to, does she? Because she's looking at the same PowerPoint. I'm not going to stop sharing at all. Susie, I'm confusing you. Sorry, carry on.
Okay, it's easily done. Okay, well, my Wi-Fi has been a bit shaky, so I'm hoping it's going to hold out for this next section. So yes, thank you for your warm introductions, Stephen. So I'm not sure how many of you on the call managed to join us at Acapulco, but for those of you who don't know, this was our first online ALL Primary Languages Conference. So usually we meet in the north and the south of England, but because of COVID, we obviously went online. And I have to say, it was, as it says on the slides, a blast. There was such a buzz about the session. I think we had close to 200 delegates, which was phenomenal. And I understand that not everyone who signed up actually managed to join us on the day, but they would have watched the sessions back afterwards. We did manage to capture some reviews and the chat from the event. So if you click on the link which is shown, you can follow that using that link there. We are very much hoping for a follow-on event in 2021, and obviously we'll have to look out for guidance from the government as to whether that again will be online or face-to-face. But I think it's fair to say, Steve and Judith, Helen, that it was just as enjoyable, if not more enjoyable, online. Certainly the chat, the discussions, the breakout rooms, and just the quality of sessions was fantastic. So I, for one, thoroughly enjoyed it.
We should say, by the way, that Sue is here. Sue Cave was the
Yes, indeed.
Was the host for that event and did much of the technical. She found out much more about Zoom than she ever really wanted to know. So she is really the mastermind behind that event. So thank you to Sue.
Yeah, huge thank you to Sue. It was no mean feat, I imagine, getting us all aligned and making sure that the sessions were all pre-recorded should we have any technical issues. But I think aside from the minor glitch here or there, it went swimmingly well. So a really big thank you to you, Sue. So during the day, we looked at the 5 separate pillars of progression. So Rachel Hawkes delivered a fantastic session looking at grammar based on the work of NSELP. Sue Cave, who is known for her physical French and Spanish phonics, delivered a session on phonics, on vocabulary. I delivered on my favourite topic of culture, and Natalie Paris talked about songs, stories and rhymes. And what was great is that there was a real sense of joined up thinking. So I think some of our delegates were obviously primary colleagues, but I think there were a number of colleagues who are also teaching in secondary, who were really interested to see what is going on in primary schools and the implications that has on their practice. So yeah, a thoroughly great day was had by all.
Thanks, Susie. And that's something we'll come back to a little bit later on, that particular question at the bottom, when Judith talks to us a bit about transition. Now, normally when Susie talks about culture, she talks a lot about Mary Glasgow Publications because she really likes the Mary Glasgow magazine. So as a special treat for her, I've put on here a photograph. That's the end of that session. Sorry, I meant to show that one first. Now, coming back to that one in a moment. There's the photograph. This was a Mary Glasgow magazine that I had when I was at school in 1965. As you can see, the cultural content at that time was a little bit stereotypical, but of course we knew nothing about what French people actually looked like. So my learning from this was that they have pink faces and very big hats. But there we are, that was Bonjour, Avril 1965.
Wow, fantastic.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's absolutely fine. I don't think mine go back as far as 1965, but I do have some very old copies that I managed to get off eBay or somewhere similar. So thank you for that, Stephen. That's brilliant. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is our new initiative, which is Forum. And again, this is the brainchild of Sue Cave, who was very much the brains behind our Acapulco primary online event. So what we want to do, given that we can't really meet in person at the moment, is to extend our offer to primary hubs online. So what that means is that we will be hosting a termly event, and this is for ALL members only. So those of you who are perhaps thinking about becoming members, I would really strongly recommend that you do so, so that you can have access to these CPD events online. They'll be hosted as tonight on Zoom, and within there's going to be a brief update. So we're going to be looking at what is new in the world of languages, primary languages, and there will be 2 presentations. There's a web link there at the bottom. I'm sure somebody will pop that in the chat, and that's where you can find out on the ALL website a little bit more. So if you are keen to book onto our first event, if you follow the tiny URL at the top there, and this will be Wednesday, the 11th of November, so very soon. And that is going to be 4 o'clock for a 4:15 start. I am informed that these events will be available to ALL members after the event. So if your teaching commitments or parental commitments mean that you aren't able to join us on the 11th at 4 o'clock, then we will obviously make those sessions or the recordings of those sessions available to ALL members via alternative means. So on Wednesday next week, I think our very own Stephen Fawkes is going to do an overview of this as a primary roadshow. And then we've got 2 guest speakers. So we have Ellie Chettle-Cully, who is going to deliver a session on raising the profile of MFL in primary schools. So I'm excited to hear about that one. And then there are going to be some questions via the chat. And then our second speaker session is going to be delivered by Suzanne Wilson, who is going to be telling us about One Rainbow resource and a whole spectrum of ideas. We are planning for a 5:30 finish. And I think really, as with most of our sessions, we want that to be interactive. We want there to be audience participation, and we want to find out about what you're doing in your own schools. Stephen also asked me to mention to you that we are in the process of considering a similar forum type event for secondary languages colleagues. So I think on that one, Stephen, it's watch this space, isn't it?
Absolutely so, yes.
Thank you.
So I just put this one in case you are in the primary area particularly, although Key Stage 3 teachers might like this one too. ECML is the European Council for Modern Languages, and they publish a lot of things which you can access online, even though we're no longer members of ECML. Our government refused to pay the membership fee a few years ago, so we left it. But that's a treasure chest, which is really about language awareness. It's about exploring different languages and decoding things and giving children confidence in using those languages. So that's that one. So now moving back to Judith.
So just briefly, a little spotlight on the NALA survey that you might have seen in the current issue of the Languages Today magazine. It was featured in there at the one of the first pages of the magazine. And really, it's a, you might be familiar with NALA or not. It was a nationwide survey of languages teachers done by NALA, by the National Association of Language Advisors. And their survey, the most recent survey that it did, revealed that the GCSE in languages disadvantages vulnerable pupils. And the key question that they raised was, if we don't teach with these themes and topics, then what do we do instead? Now, Ofqual, just to give you a little bit of context, Ofqual were asked by the Secretary of State to review the relevance of GCSE content for languages. But the process, of course, has been paused due to the coronavirus pandemic. But a consultation is expected later in the year, in the new year. And so what we would like to ask you to think about, but also to discuss perhaps in your departments with your colleagues, to reach out to others, is to think about what are your views, what do you think, which is the current content appropriate, how could what could be suggestions. And so once there is a consultation, a possibility for the consultation to continue, then to be able to share your own views. You can already send, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, then you can already get in touch. I think that's on the next, is that on the next slide perhaps? Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, so please do get in touch with us at info@alllanguages.org.uk, and we will pass on your views to NALA. I think this is a really key topic to think about, and your views are very much appreciated.
Thank you. Now, and this is where we're going to get a little bit interactive, and we're going to try and do a never seen before event. The Language Magician, you might remember, was an Erasmus Plus project that ALL was involved in a few years ago. We delivered an interactive game, which is for primary children, which they very much enjoy. That's the key bit. It's a motivating game. But it also gives the teacher data about how the children perform in the skills that are tested in the challenges in the game. So in reading, in writing, and in listening, and in mixed skills. So the game is there and teachers are using it all over the country. But what you might not know is that there are also resources that go with the game. So if you want to use the resources before you play it or after you've played it, they are free, downloadable, printable resources, which are on the link that Helen has just kindly put into the chat there. So I'm going to show you now today a little bit, well, I'm not going to show you, I'm going to engage you in working with a play, which is about the characters in The Language Magician. You can see who the characters are in that particular image. This is a Key Stage 2 game. That's why there's lots of animals in it. So the characters I'm going to be asking you to play, I'll just let that sink in. The characters I'm going to be asking you to play in the little drama we're going to rehearse, you can see on the screen. Not all of them are involved because we're only doing one scene. So what are we going to do is we're going to be allocating roles to the people who are in the room at the moment. This is a play that I wrote, and I used to write plays for my family to perform at Christmas. And they had to be based on a principle that everyone had exactly the same number of lines, because otherwise my aunts in particular got jealous of each other. They would say, she's been on stage much longer than me. It's my turn to be on stage. So all of them have got very similar numbers of lines. And in the scene we're going to enact now, we have the characters in bold. They're the only ones we need for this particular scene. While you were having a look at the scene, then one of the things you need to think about as my performing class is what props we need to make this scene work properly. What are the props that would make this scene come alive? Okay, so now, first of all, in the chat, we've got to allocate some of the other roles. I've designated some people already. So those people who know The Language Magician will know that the main character, the central character, is an avatar of the player. So it's a young magician who is the hero of the game. So we need someone to be volunteering in the chat to be the avatar. So the first name that comes up in the chat now will be the avatar. And now we're going to see if anyone will put their name into the chat.
Go on, Mart. I think you could do this.
I assure you only have 1 or 2 lines at the most, and it's in English, so you don't need to worry about
Julia?
anything else.
I'll do one.
Who said that?
Julia.
Yes, I'll do it.
Okay.
Tell me which one to do.
You do the avatar then.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So then Susie's going to be the dog, and the mouse is Judith. Now we need a lion. Anyone feel that they're in a lion-like mood this afternoon? This is where I need my aunts.
Florence.
Oh, Florence is going to be the lion. Very good. The giraffe. Now, the giraffe is quite. I'm not going to tell you because I need to cast you according to what you're. I have to help you to do the person according to what the character is. So I'll tell you the character in just a moment. But anyone fancy being a giraffe?
I think Sue looks as if
Sue looks like a giraffe.
she's willing. She said, put me down.
Okay. Oh, she did. Okay, so Sue's the giraffe. So there's supposed to be 2 narrators, but we can just manage with 1. So Helen, you can be both narrators.
Oh, thank you.
Means you've got 2 lines or maybe even 3.
Oh.
Now a little small for a giraffe. Thank you very much. Now the cat is an interesting character. I'll just tell you that. I'm just not going to say anything else. Just let you to think about, would you like to be an interesting character? Anyone being the cat? We may have to double up on the cat then.
Or Elaine, you were around earlier.
No office for the cat. Okay, so oh, hang on. So Judith, you'll have to be the cat as well as the mouse. Okay, you're the cat. Now the mouse children is everybody else who hasn't got a role already. And the musicians are also anybody else who hasn't got a role already. Okay. So what I was trying to think of was how you could use a play, the idea of a play, to do work either in classroom on the days that you're in school, or out of classroom on the days when people are not in school, and how you could try and still make it work together, people working in different contexts. So this was what my thinking was. So on a day when you are together, you would introduce the characters and the other things that you need to do this particular scene. And then you'd have your first audition. Now this could be an online audition. You could just be using I'll come back to the script in a moment. So you tell people what the roles are, and you describe those roles, and then the people in your class would audition for the different roles. They might be keen to be the horse or the lion, or you might say, oh no, you're much more of a mouse. You're going to be my mouse, because the mouse is like this. The mouse is lively and has a very quick voice like you've got, all those sorts of things. So I'd start off using the English script just to make sure they understand what the story is about and the tone of the story and so on. We're only going to use the English script today, and then gradually move on to showing them the target language script as well. So they would basically, when they're at home especially, have both scripts in front of them. So they'd be able to move from one to the other to make sure they know what they're saying, so they can think about their intonation as well as their pronunciation. The key thing I think is useful away from school is this aspect of rehearsal. Rehearsal, as we know at the moment, is very much being emphasized by all the people who are doing development work in pedagogy in particular. They call it meaningful practice. Rehearsal is meaningful practice, because there's nothing more meaningful than having to give a performance, having to get ready for it. And rehearsal is repetition and it's drill. Which is what we do, but we don't call it repetition and drill because that sounds boring. So we call it rehearsal. And in the context of a drama, obviously, it's a natural thing to do. So when they're not in class, they can be using both of the scripts to rehearse, to try and remember how to say the things, to try and say them to the rest of their family, maybe get the rest of their family involved in doing a rehearsal with them, and to pick up the props and the costume they might need. Then when they're back in their group, then they can rehearse together. So these are just my thoughts. Obviously, there are other things you can probably think of that you could do as well. If they are at home at the same time as the members of their family, if they're in a family, maybe they could do a little version of it in their family and make a film of it. Just have a nice half an hour trying to get them to talk Spanish or whatever it might be. And then what I want them to do, or ideally, especially if they're in Key Stage 3, but even in Key Stage 2, is to move from reading the script to making themselves a prompt card. So rather than having everything written down, they've just got 1 or 2 words. So they're trying to now build their memories, how to fill the gaps in between the prompts that they've got. So then get them to rehearse again. So this has taken me a couple of 3 weeks so far, maybe. And then eventually, when you're all together again, you might do a performance with your prompts, maybe without your prompts, and you might do it as a film. Who knows, for them to watch, not to put on the internet or anything like that. So doing that sort of thing, I think, gives us as teachers a lot of latitude for using as much of our target language as we want to, or as our pupils can take in, can accept, or restricting that if they're finding it too tough going. The point is to try and have an enjoyable interactive experience, and to also have a bit of a playful relationship between the director, who's always going to be me, obviously, and the actors, who today are you. So I need to tell you something about the characters before we just have a look at the script. So here we are. So the avatar is a heroic type voice. The dog is one of those little lively yappy dogs. So Susie, you've got to talk little lively and yappy. The mouse is it's a male mouse, by the way, Judith, but he's very concerned about his family. He's a family man. So everything is about family. The lion is obviously the noble beast. The giraffe is slightly distant, as you might imagine, high head in the clouds, slightly vague, so talks a bit slowly and pauses from time to time. The cat doesn't speak at all, so that's why you've got that job. You don't have to learn anything for that one. The cat just runs about and makes a lot of noise. The mouse children all talk at the same time as each other, so that's why we want the crowd to do that. And the musicians, you have to come up with some eerie, magical music. So that's going to be a real challenge to try and come up with the music that comes right at the end of the scene. Okay, so that's enough introduction now. And now I'll show you the script, which we're about to perform as probably the world dernière as well as the world premiere. So we're not going to have music at the beginning because I think musicians need to have time to think about that. But let's just plunge right into it. So remember, you're both narrators, Helen.
Okay.
Go.
Welcome to the magical farm and welcome to our play. Where is the crocodile? Let's meet the magical animals.
Okay, so at this point, I might be bringing in the rest of the class and saying, how do you like Helen's voice there? Was that nice presenter voice? What do you think about the way she said the bit in the middle? She said it like a proper question, didn't she? Although when it's the title of the play, you probably want to say, and welcome to our play, Where is Crocodile? Because that's the title of the play.
Oh, right. Okay. Didn't get that.
No, you wouldn't have got that.
Why? I wanted to know where the crocodile was.
For the first time. Okay, now the cat has just left the room at the time when she's got her big line. This is the sort of thing that happens. When
she's
she's off stage. She's about to come on stage. Okay, let's try again. Let's go again with your third line, narrator number 1.
Okay, let's meet the magical animals.
So now all of us have got to shout bravo. Off you go.
Bravo!
So,
hello, goodbye. I'm in a hurry to catch that cat.
oh, that's exactly the right sort of voice. Thank you. Avatar.
Oh, that dog. He is never still. Where's everybody else?
Oh, mouse. Is the mouse back?
Hello, language magician. I'm just fetching some food for my family. There are 12 new children.
Congratulations.
12 children? Did I hear 12 children?
12 new children, I think.
Very nice.
So how many children altogether?
56.
56.
Dog. Oh, the dog's disappeared. Her broadband's let her down at the exactly the wrong moment. Okay, I'll be the dog. Are you there, Susie? No, we've lost the dog. 56 cats. 56 cats. Where are they? Where are they?
Not 56 cats. 56 children. How will we ever feed them?
Now we're all looking.
Yes, okay. I will help feed the mouse children with a food spell.
Very
magic,
nice.
magic.
Very nice. Now, everyone is a mouse child.
Oh, food, great. Here's some cheese.
And you had one mouse there. There's supposed to be 56 of you. Try it again. Okay,
mice there.
Great. Here's some cheese.
Okay, now let's hear from musicians. Everyone is a musician. So let me just hear what you think sounds like some magical music. Everyone now, you can hum, you can whistle, you can sing, you can just talk if you like. So a little bit of magical music. That is the most magical music I have heard in a long time. So thank you very much for that collective performance. That's an unusual thing to be doing on a Wednesday evening, but there we go. So yes, so what I was going to say was, when you're going through these early stages of the activity, You can go as slow as you want to, depending on how your class takes it and how they respond to it. But if you've got the sort of class where you've got 2 or 3 people who are like I'm trying to find a polite way of saying the showy person, the people who like to show off a bit, then you can get a little bit of competition going between them and say, well, I think your dog was a lot more lively than your dog. Will you try your dog again? So you can just have lots of repeating and you can just go through it again and again, which is what we're really trying to get at, because we want them to be looking at the language. So as I say, there is the same play, exactly the same, in in French and in German and in Spanish and in Italian. It's all on the Language Magician website, if you like that idea of that particular play. Of course, what you can do as a teacher is you can make sure the language, the script, is exactly the language you want them to be learning, either because you've already met it or because it's your high frequency language that you want them to learn next. So you can change the text. You don't have to use anybody else's text. You probably don't have time to write your own, but if you're keen on that sort of thing, you can write a little sketch of your own, clearly. It's all about trying to get them actively involved in using the language, I think. So that was my drama activity. Did you like it?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Really good.
So now we get back a little bit more serious and we're going back to transition and to Judith.
Well, I think this worked really well in terms of thinking about drama and how, of course, we want to ensure that the transition between Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 is smooth and enjoyable, but not dramatic. And so in order to facilitate the transition, this might be useful for primary and secondary colleagues. ALL has a transition toolkit, and you can access that via the link that we've provided here. And in addition to that, there is also a link to the ASEL toolkits. And if you follow the link to those toolkits, you will see that you can find on the website information about the Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3 French transition toolkit, the Spanish transition toolkit, and the German transition toolkit. And you can also download templates for each of those toolkits. And of particular interest perhaps to you might be that there is a drag and drop function that might be very useful for you in order to facilitate planning and to allow sharing of what has been achieved, what has been covered with your primary and secondary colleagues. And we'd really, again, encourage you, if you have any good news stories, any good practice that you would like to share, anything that really works in your school, for example, if you're a secondary school, if you're working in secondary school, what works with your primary feeder school, or if you're working in primary, how you are supporting the transition and how are you supporting your pupils, but also your secondary colleagues, then please do get in touch with us at info@alllanguages.org.uk. We'd really love to hear you sharing your good practice sharing and in use sharing with colleagues what works well for you.
Thank you. Just to say on the 2 toolkits that are mentioned on that screen there, I'll go back to the right screen again. And the ALL one, which has been around now for a little while, is very comprehensive. Yes. So it's got loads of stuff in it that is very interesting to primary and secondary teachers. The ASCL one is much more of the shorthand version of it, which is just there really, it's to try and help people to make a start. It's like the elements, the basic elements of what people have been doing in primary to pass on to secondary colleagues so they can act on those particular points. So it's 2 different sides of the same coin, really. Thank you for that. So yes, Languages Today is our magazine, as you know. The latest edition came out a couple of weeks ago, but we're planning the next one already because we've learned from our printers that they're going to be taking an extended Christmas break because of the coronavirus issues. So we need to try and get things edited a bit sooner than usual. So that's why we're working on it just now. We're going to be calling it Closing the Gap. And as you can imagine, that is quite a broad concept because there are lots of different gaps that need to be closed. Judith has just been talking about the transition gap, key stage 2 to 3. But then we've got the gap that she talked about earlier in the NALA report, the gap between people of different social sectors. Do they have the same access to what's going on? There's the gap between teachers of modern languages, the teachers of community languages, the teachers of English as an additional language. All of these are gaps that we ought to try to join up because we're all doing the same job. So if you have an idea of someone who you think could be writing an article, either for the magazine or for the website, which is dedicated to the web magazine as well, we have an area called Languages Today Extra on the website, then let us know about that. If you want to write something yourself, however short or long, get in touch, as I said earlier on. We are all, as it says at the bottom of my screen there, teachers of language working together for our learners who might be learning lots of different sorts of things. Back to Judith.
So just briefly on Black History Month, perhaps some questions to that we might reflect upon. Who's represented in our classroom? What are the materials that we're using? What is the curriculum content that is presented on a daily basis and shared and discussed? And whose stories are being told? How are they told? And who has a voice? And we feel that Black History Month is really an opportunity for us all to do an audit of the resources that we use in the classroom. And it is also a call to all of you, if you have any resources that you would like to share, that you think would be beneficial for colleagues in primary and secondary, then please know that the ALL language zones that Stephen was talking about before are a potential base for sharing these invaluable resources that you have created to inspire learners, to raise awareness, to challenge racist narratives, and to promote equity for all. And we at ALL want to support you in sharing your work. So please do get in touch if you'd like to contribute. As Stephen was saying, no matter how short or long your contribution is, whether you would like to share something, a resource, a scheme of learning, an article, some ideas, a link that is particularly, that you found particularly useful, or also a group that is where you can find resources, then please get in touch so that we can continue to build these resource data banks on the ALL language zone pages, which is really by teachers for teachers.
Thank you. So this was the project I was telling you about at the beginning of the session that launches on Saturday at the SALT conference. SALT is the Scottish Association of Language Teachers, our fraternal equivalent north of the border. So if you want to go to that conference, you're very welcome to subscribe. They're taking bookings at the moment. They have a large number of delegates already signed up. If you find that on, that isn't on there, I haven't put the SALT link on there, but you can find that on Twitter or on Google. I'm sure you'll find the SALT conference. ALL itself is having the same sort of event on the 12th of November, courtesy of Helen's hosting once again. So that's the webinar to launch the resources I mentioned to you earlier, which are looking like this. This is a selection of the 21 lesson plans that you can find when the website goes live at the weekend. So there may be something there that you think, oh, that's an interesting one for me to think about. But as you see, the point is to try and stretch across those years of transition, so that you could try and plan something maybe with your linked primary or secondary schools. You could try and do something similar on either side of that gap to try and help the students to realize that in fact it's the same thing that they're learning about, just in a different place. So a few events that are coming up. You're there today at the Roadshow Conversation. On Friday, we have our first Friday event. That's every month. On the first Friday, we have a social event for trainees, NQTs and RQTs. If you know any of those, please let them know. You're welcome to come along yourself as well. We don't exclude anybody. 11th of November is Forum, the Susie event that was described by Susie a little bit earlier on. And then the webinar about the resources launch for LAPS on the 12th of November. There's a nice thing from Florence about a favorite book called Petit Bleu et Petit Jaune. Thank you. The language show, which is normally in London, as you know, in November, is online this year as well. They still have the same program of talks, so you can sign up for those. I think Judith and Helen and maybe Susie as well is also speaking there. So you can meet some of the same people who you're seeing today. And then in the new year, you've got the AWL London January event and London Language World, which has been announced on Twitter just today. So you'll be getting, and also by AllNet just today. So AWL members would have had that information too. Also to be an online event this time. And to conclude, if you decide you'd really like to read some more roadshows, you can read the roadshows that go back to 2012, I think, on the website. You can only read them if you're a member, so you really have to be dedicated if you become a roadshow-aholic. But all of those things are available. And as it says on the bottom one there, once again, if you think of something interesting to put into one of the roadshows or anywhere else, then please send them in because we can use them. Everyone who you've met tonight is a volunteer, and everyone who creates all the resources on the website and in the roadshows is a volunteer as well. So you just become another volunteer. And that's what AWL is about. It's a big family of volunteers trying to meet each other, talk to each other, find out what each other think, and point each other in interesting directions. So there we are. That's the end of our webinar roadshow conversation for November. We'll be having another one, no doubt, in February, which is when the next roadshow comes out. Thank you very much for coming along and for joining in and for your performances, particularly my star actors who did very well in the world premiere, and as I say, very definitely dernière of that scene from the play. Helen will now say, if you want to hang around and chat, you're very welcome. She always says that, but we don't want to keep her too long because she's our hostess, but doesn't like to drive anyone away. So she can sit there for hours unless we're careful about not staying too long. Thank you very much to everyone.
And thank you, Stephen, because you bring it all together in such a delightful way. So we really like it, we really enjoyed it. And that's a very good presentation. Thank you so much. Great fun.
You're welcome.
I'll stop the recording now then.